Welcome to Merlin's Corner, a place to discuss, speculate, cogitate, and otherwise stare into the abyss of the unknown and fish out morsels of possibility. I was originally going to call this segment Lorcan navel gazing, but for one, I didn't think enough folks would get the joke, and two, it's a little hard to fit on a YouTube thumbnail. At any rate, for this first episode, I want to talk about vanilla statlines. Now, what do I mean by that? A vanilla character is one with no abilities. The only thing in their text box is flavor text. Some people might think them boring, but they serve a valuable role in setting out the costs of cards. A character with an ability, in general, shouldn't have better stats than a vanilla character of the same cost. Or in other words, adding an ability to a vanilla character should merit a cost increase. In Lorcana, we have 3 stats that a character can have: Strength, Willpower, and Lore. Of the cards revealed so far, I believe there are 2 relevant progressions, one for 1 lore and one for 2 lore. Let's look at the 1 lore family first. For 1 ink, you get a 1 lore character with 2 strength and 2 willpower. We see this in the Amber, Stitch New Dog, the Sapphire, Flounder Voice of Reason, and the Steel, Goons Maleficent's Underlings. It is highly likely that in Ruby, this post is filled by Sergeant Tibbs, Courageous Cat, as even though only his cost and strength have been confirmed, he fits this pattern. For 2 ink, a 1 lore character seems to get only a willpower increase, becoming a 2/3. We see this in Amber's Minnie Mouse Beloved Princess, and in Ruby's Donald Duck Boisterous Fowl. For 3 ink, we expect a 3/4, shown by Amethyst's The Wardrobe Belle's Confidant and Emerald's Mickey Mouse Steamboat Pilot. We haven't seen a 4 ink character fitting this pattern yet, but we have seen at 5 ink Steel's Cerberus 3-headed dog being a 5/6. Likely he only provides 1 lore. I believe it's not too much of a stretch to assert that for 4 ink, a 1 lore character should have a 4/5 stat line. We could also extend this. For 6 ink, we would expect a 6/7 with 1 lore, and for 0 ink, I would expect a 1/1 with 1 lore, though such a card would likely not be inkable. Obviously, being able to ink a free-to-play card would be too much value. For 2 lore, 1 ink seems to get you 1 strength and 1 willpower, and we see this in Amethyst's Maleficent Biding Her Time. Note that she is also uninkable, and I think it's pretty safe to assume there will be no 0 ink cards that give 2 lore. For 2 ink, we get a 2/2, which compares quite favorably to the 2/3 with 1 lore. We see this so far only in Sapphire's Aurora Regal Princess. For 3 ink, we get a 3/3, which again compares very favorably to the 3/4 with 1 lore, and we see this in Sapphire's Jasmine Disguised, Amber's Mickey Mouse True Friend, and Steel's Kristoff Official Ice Master. Going to 4 ink gives less stat value, giving only a 3/4, as we see in Sapphire's Maleficent Sinister Visitor. There's also Amber's Ariel on Human Legs, which has the same stat line, but also a drawback in being unable to sing songs. This is flavorful, but makes her worse than a normal vanilla card. It would have been nice if she had an extra strength or willpower to make up for that, but maybe the developers felt that her being a princess was enough. At 5 ink, we get a 4/5, as seen in Emerald's Jumba Jukaba Renegade Scientist. As before, I think it's pretty safe to assume that a vanilla 2 lore character at 6 ink should have 5 strength and 6 willpower. Comparing the 2 stat lines, we see that each has a jump where they switch from even strength and willpower to having 1 more willpower than strength, and it happens earlier in the 1 lore line than the 2 lore line, making the 2 lore characters at 2 and 3 ink seem a bit more appealing. But in general, apart from the shift from 1 to 2 ink in 1 lore characters and the shift from 3 to 4 ink in 2 lore characters, it seems that adding either 1 lore or adding both 1 strength and 1 willpower merits an increase in cost of 1 ink. We've seen 2 outliers to this so far: Amethyst's Olaf Friendly Snowman and Ruby's Scar Fiery Usurper. Olaf is a 1 ink 1/3 with 1 lore, which is still the same total stats as the 2/2/1s we've seen, just shifted more to willpower. Scar, however, has less total stats than we would expect from a 4-drop with 1 lore. It seems that having high strength is valued more than having high willpower, so where we would expect a 4 ink 4/5 with 1 lore, Scar is a 5/3, allowing him to take on larger threats that will typically cost more than him, but being fairly easy to take out himself. Now that we have these progressions progression as a baseline, we can see the logic in how basically every other revealed card has been costed. First, let's look at the challenger characters. So far, we've seen Captain Hook, Forceful Duelist, Prince Eric, Dashing and Brave, Dr. Facilier, Charlatan, and Jafar, Wicked Sorcerer. The steel ones seem to be better value. Hook is a 3-2 on attack, while a 1-2 on defense, while Eric is a 3-3 versus a 1-3. These differences aren't too severe and makes them very good offensively for their cost. However, Dr. Facilier is a 2-4 on attack and a 0-4 on defense, and lacking that strength on defense makes him very vulnerable, so you'll want to be strategic in when you use him. Jafar is a little better, as he at least has some base strength, but on attack he's a 5-5, which only makes him slightly better than the hypothetical vanilla 4-5 we've posited for 4 ink. It does make him more sturdy than Scar, Fiery Usurper, but if Scar survives a challenge, he can at least still take down someone else with him if he's challenged in response, whereas Jafar likely won't. I think we'll see that Challenger in general is better on low ink cards. Now, Challenger is notable as an ability as really just shifting stats around depending on whether they're attacking or defending, so they're really not too far removed from vanilla anyway. Let's see how more complex or interesting abilities affect costs. Comparing Hercules' True Hero to Kristoff, we can see that the Bodyguard ability seems to be valued as much as an extra lore, while comparing to Mickey Mouse Steamboat Pilot makes it seem to be worth an additional willpower. The unevenness in the stat staircases makes this a little difficult to judge at times. More straightforward is Pascal, Rapunzel's companion, whose conditional evasive ability seems worth either 1 strength and 1 willpower, or 1 lore, which seems an even comparison. We can use this for some extrapolation. Goofy Daredevil is a 5 ink 3-4 with evasive. Compared to Mickey Steamboat Pilot, I doubt that evasive will be valued at 2 ink, so it seems likely to me that Goofy will turn out to have 2 lore. Similarly, I think Tigger Wonderful Thing will also turn out to have 2 lore. As for Ward, if we compare Aladdin Prince Ali to Aurora Regal Princess, I highly doubt that Ward will be valued as worth 0 ink to add on to something. So I'll bet Aladdin only quests for 1 lore. However, Lady Tremaine Wicked Stepmother has such a high cost for her stats and ability, I think it's pretty likely she'll end up with 2 lore. Support, so far seen only on Hey Hey Boat Snack, seems to be worth 1 strength, being a lower value keyword, and I think it's safe to assume that fairly similar in value, Timon Grub Rustler will also have 2 willpower and produce 1 lore. Going into abilities that aren't just keywords, Tinkerbell Tiny Tactician, when compared to Mickey Steamboat Pilot, indicates her ability is worth a loss of 1 strength, while Beast Hard-Headed, when compared to Jumba, indicates on-play item banishment to be worth a loss of 1 willpower. Elsa Snow Queen, being able to force other characters to exert, opening them up to challenges, has her ability rated at a cost increase of 1 ink when compared to Donald. Let's end by looking at a place where this whole method of extrapolation fails! Comparing Mickey Mouse Wayward Sorcerer, he has the same cost, stats, and lore as Maleficent's Sinister Visitor, with additional abilities on top of that. Mickey's just a strictly better card. The only reason you would run Maleficent over him in an Amethyst Sapphire deck is if you specifically wanted villain synergy, or if there's some Floodborn Maleficent we haven't seen yet, and even then I think Sorceress and even Biding Her Time would be better targets for shifting. What's going on here is something that happens in essentially every CCG. Cards of higher rarity are often strictly better than cards of lower rarity. Mickey is a super rare, whereas Maleficent is a lowly common. The idea is you start off with crappy common cards, and as you open more packs, you get better cards and replace them. This is the exception to my statline progression theorem. High rarity cards do not care! Thanks for stopping by Merlin's Corner. Tune in next time when we talk about something else, I guess.